Stop worshipping income. Your money mindset is deciding your financial future long before your salary ever gets a vote. Two people can earn the same paycheck for 30 years and retire in completely different lives. One ends up calm, solvent, and free. The other ends up anxious, stretched, and still negotiating with bills. Not because one was blessed by fate, not because one had secret opportunities, because one built a money mindset and the other kept reacting to money with whatever beliefs were installed years ago. The truth is, money is never just math. It is memory, it is emotion, it is identity. It is the private story you tell yourself every time you earn, spend, save, borrow, risk, or wait. That story operates under the surface. It decides whether you save before you spend or spend before you save. It decides whether you see learning as an investment or an inconvenience. It decides whether a setback ends your discipline or sharpens it. I learnt this the hard way. I burned through years thinking higher income would fix weak thinking. It did not. It only gave my bad habits more room to breathe. This audiobook gives you 7 habits that build a money mindset strong enough to survive salary plateaus, market fear, and financial disappointment. Not through hype, through daily discipline. Starting now. Chapter 1. What is a money mindset and why it matters? Most people do not lose financially because they are stupid. They lose because they are operating on old instructions they never examined. They think they are making rational money decisions in real time, but in truth, they are following emotional code written years earlier. A child who grew up hearing that rich people are greedy does not simply forget that. A teenager who watched bills create tension at home does not enter adulthood neutral. A young professional who once got humiliated by debt does not just become calm around money because the calendar changed. The truth is, your money mindset was built before you ever tried to manage money well. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky changed behavioral economics by showing that people do not respond to money with cold logic. They respond through bias, fear, and perceived loss. Their work on prospect theory revealed something brutally important. People feel losses more intensely than equivalent gains. That means your financial behavior is often less about building wealth and more about avoiding emotional pain, not theory, lived experience. I have watched smart people reject obvious opportunities because the possibility of short-term discomfort felt more real than the long-term reward. A money mindset is the set of beliefs, thoughts, and feelings you hold about money. It is your invisible operating system. It is not your budget. It is not your investment account. It is not your spreadsheet. Those are tools. The mindset is the hand using the tools. If the hand is shaking, angry, ashamed, impatient, or confused, the tool will not save you. This is where most people stop. They learn strategy before they examine psychology. They download a budgeting app while still believing money is always slipping away. They open an investment account, yet still fear that wealth will somehow corrupt them. They try to save while secretly identifying as someone who is always behind. Then they wonder why the strategy keeps breaking down. I learnt this the hard way when I was making more money than I had ever made and still living with private financial tension. On paper, I looked stable. In my head, I was still operating from a place of scarcity. I was still treating money as something that arrived to relieve stress, rather than as something I had to manage with discipline. That distinction changes everything. Your current financial position is not random. It is the accumulated result of repeated decisions. Those decisions came from a mindset. If you panic spend when stressed, that came from a mindset. If you undercharge for your work because you feel guilty asking for more, that came from a mindset. If you delay investing because you believe you need to know everything first, that came from a mindset. The present is the product of the past, repeated. Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir wrote powerfully about scarcity and how it narrows attention. When people feel they never have enough, they focus on immediate pressure and lose bandwidth for long-term thinking. That is not just about income, it is about perception. A person can earn well and still operate from a sense of internal scarcity. Another person can earn modestly and think with stability, patience, and intention. Income matters, but interpretation matters too. Here is the heavy truth. If your money mindset is broken, more money can make the damage worse. A bigger paycheck in the hands of emotional chaos just creates a more expensive version of the same life. It is like installing a stronger engine in a car with bad steering. You do not become safer, you reach the ditch faster. So before you talk about investing, saving rates, or financial freedom, you need to ask a more uncomfortable question. What do you actually believe about money when nobody is watching? Do you believe it is scarce? Do you believe it is stressful? Do you believe it leaves as quickly as it comes? Do you believe wealthy people are selfish? Do you believe you are late? Do you believe you are bad with numbers? Do you believe you always mess it up? These beliefs do not sit quietly. They make decisions for you. Write down the first 5 thoughts that arise when you think about money. Not the polished answer, the first honest answer. Then ask where each one came from. Family, culture, fear, failure, pride, shame, advertising, comparison. The point is not to judge yourself. The point is to see the code you are running. Once something is visible, it can be challenged. Once it is challenged, it can be replaced. Once it is replaced, your decisions change. And once your decisions change, your future stops looking like a recycled version of your past. Money is not merely what you earn. It is what your mind allows you to keep, grow, direct, and trust. Until you understand that, every strategy will feel heavier than it should. Once you understand it, every strategy becomes cleaner, simpler, and more sustainable. The truth is, the real financial work begins long before the transaction. It begins in the belief behind the hand that makes it. Chapter 2. How habits build your financial future. Once you see the beliefs under your money behavior, the next question becomes unavoidable. How does a life actually change? Most people think change happens in dramatic scenes. A promotion, a windfall, a brilliant investment, a lucky break. That fantasy is seductive because it excuses inconsistency. If transformation depends on one big moment, you can keep neglecting the small ones, but your financial life does not care about fantasy. It responds to repetition. The truth is, habits are where your financial future is quietly built or quietly damaged, not once, daily. Wendy Wood spent decades studying habit formation and showed that much of human behavior is automatic. People like to think they are deciding constantly. They are not. They are repeating. That matters because every repeated financial behavior becomes either an asset or a leak. Checking your bank account weekly, saving before spending, reviewing subscriptions monthly, reading about money consistently. These are not glamorous actions, they are structural actions. And structures decide outcomes. This is where most people stop. They want intensity without routine. They want a powerful weekend of motivation, then go right back to the old pattern on Monday. They want a new budget without a new behavior. They want financial peace without financial repetition. Look at the Federal Reserve data on household financial resilience. In recent reporting, a meaningful share of adults still could not cover a $400 emergency expense with cash or its equivalent. That number matters because emergencies are rarely the true cause of financial collapse. Exposure is. When a small expense can destabilize you, the problem is not just the expense. The problem is the absence of a habit structure that prepared for it. I have seen this destroy people. Not one massive mistake, 100 small unexamined ones, a subscription here, a takeout pattern there, a weekend impulse rationalized as self-care. a decision to save next month instead of this month. Then one setback arrives and exposes the truth. There was never a system underneath the lifestyle. Habits matter because they remove negotiation. A decision has to be made again and again. A habit has already been decided. That is why identity matters. Saying, "I am trying to save money," leaves room for debate. Saying, "I pay myself first," changes the identity of the person acting. Saying, "I should learn more about money," keeps the action optional. Saying, "I study money every week," builds the structure. Aristotle said excellence is a habit. The line survived for a reason. People become what they repeat. The same is true financially. You do not become secure by hoping harder. You become secure by repeating the kinds of actions that security grows from. I learnt this the hard way in my own rebuild. Burnout had already taught me that motivation is unreliable. I did not rebuild my body, emotions or finances with inspiration. I rebuilt them with systems that were boring enough to repeat. Boring is underrated. Boring built more of my life than brilliance ever did. If your current financial reality feels heavy, identify the 3 behaviors you already repeat when it comes to money. Do you check your spending, or do you avoid it? Do you save what is left, or spend what is left? Do you learn when afraid, or distract yourself when confused? Your present habits are your real financial biography. Here is the quotable truth. Your future is being written in small amounts. Your identity is being built in repeated actions. Your bank account follows your routine more faithfully than your ambitions do. Do not try to install everything at once. That is ego disguised as discipline. Real discipline respects sequence. Install one habit. Repeat it until it becomes normal. Then install the next. A stable layer can hold another layer. A chaotic base cannot. That is why habits beat heroic effort. Heroic effort burns hot and disappears. Habit survives mood. Habit survives stress. Habit survives bad weeks. Habit keeps moving when emotion goes missing. If you want a different financial future, stop waiting for a dramatic event to rescue you. The event you need is smaller than that. It is the moment you stop asking whether you feel ready and start building a routine that does not require readiness. The truth is, wealth is often less dramatic than people imagine. It looks like automatic transfers. It looks like monthly review. It looks like saying no without self-pity. It looks like reading when others scroll. It looks like patience in rooms addicted to speed. Every chapter from here forward is not asking you to admire a principle. It is asking you to install a behavior. That is the difference between entertainment and change. You do not need another financial idea you can quote. You need a financial action you can repeat. Once repetition begins, the future begins to bend. Chapter 3. Pay yourself first. Most people treat their future like an unpaid invoice. Everyone else gets paid first. The landlord, the phone company, the grocery store, the streaming services, the weekend appetite. Then, if anything survives the month, maybe the future gets a small leftover gesture. This is how entire working lives disappear. Not in chaos, in sequence. The truth is, sequence is everything. If saving happens last, it usually does not happen. If saving happens first, it becomes part of who you are. George S. Clason made this principle famous through The Richest Man in Babylon. Keep a portion of all you earn. Simple words, ancient idea, still ignored. People hear it and nod, then return to their normal order of operations. Earn, spend, hope, regret, repeat. This is where most people stop. They think the answer is a bigger amount. It is not. The answer is a better order. Start with a percentage, protect the sequence, automate the act, then let time do what willpower never could. Vanguard has repeatedly shown, using retirement savings data, that automatic enrollment dramatically increases participation, compared with systems that rely on voluntary action. That should tell you something important. Human beings are not bad at saving because they are evil or lazy. They are bad at saving because unstructured behavior gets outperformed by automated structure. If a good action depends on memory, mood, or discipline in the moment, it is fragile. If it is automated, it becomes durable. I learnt this the hard way. There was a period when I could afford good restaurants, good clothes, and good excuses, but I still had not built the habit that mattered most. Money flowed through me because I had never made the future my first creditor. Once I reversed the order, everything changed, not overnight, but permanently. Paying yourself first is not only financial, it is psychological. It tells your nervous system that your future matters now, not after the world is finished taking from you. It tells your identity that you are not just a consumer of income, you are a builder of reserves. Start with 10% if you can. Start with 5% if that is what reality allows. I do not care about the size nearly as much as I do about honesty. A small automatic act, repeated without drama, is stronger than a bold promise that collapses after 2 months. This is where most people stop. They want a perfect savings rate before they begin. Perfection is procrastination wearing better clothes. Open a separate account. Make it harder to touch. Make it visible enough to respect. The separation matters. When the money sits in the same place as your spending cash, temptation stays close. Friction is not your enemy. Friction is often your protection. Warren Buffett said you should not save what is left after spending. You should spend what is left after saving. That line is repeated so often people no longer hear the violence it does to the old pattern. It overturns the default culture of consumption. It places your future above your appetite. Here is the deep point. Paying yourself first is how you stop treating savings like sacrifice. It becomes a standard. Rent is not optional. Electricity is not optional. Your future should not be optional either. People often tell me they will start when they earn more. I do not buy it, because the habit you practice at a lower income is the identity you carry into a higher one. If you cannot direct 10% of a smaller paycheck, there is no guarantee you will direct a larger one. Lifestyle expands fast. Structure must arrive first. You are not being asked to become extreme. You are being asked to become ordered. Ordered people keep more of what they earn because they decide in advance where it goes. Disordered people call themselves spontaneous, while their future keeps paying the bill. Here is a line worth remembering. If you do not pay your future first, your future pays for your present. If you do not protect a portion of income now, you will spend years trying to recover what vanished through neglect. If you do not automate the transfer, you will keep confusing intention with execution. Set the transfer on the day income arrives, not 3 days later, not when you feel stable. First, that timing matters because money behaves differently when it is assigned before it is available. What never lands in your daily spending pool is less likely to be emotionally spent. And yes, at first, it may feel restrictive. Good. That feeling is data. It means your old pattern is being interrupted. You are forcing life to fit around a future priority. That pressure is not punishment, it is reorganization. I have seen people transform financially with nothing more glamorous than this habit done properly for 3 years. Emergency fund first, then investment account, then a growing calm that cannot be faked. The account balance matters, but the deeper gain is trust. You begin to trust yourself because you finally have evidence that your future is not being abandoned every month. The truth is, paying yourself first is a declaration. It says, I am no longer living as if my only financial job is to react. I will direct, I will reserve, I will build, and once that declaration becomes a habit, the rest of your financial life starts to align around it. Chapter 4. Spending Awareness. Money leaks most aggressively through what you do not notice. Not the giant bill you hate paying, the small escape you stop seeing, the subscription you forgot, the convenience fee you stopped questioning, the impulsive reward you rename as deserved. Financial damage often arrives quietly because invisibility protects it. The truth is, most people are not in control of their spending. They are in contact with it. That is different. Richard Thaler helped popularize the idea of mental accounting, the way people treat money differently, depending on its label, rather than its reality. That is why someone can say they are being careful while casually burning cash on repeated small purchases that never get counted as serious. The mind fragments spending so the pattern stays hidden. A coffee is not a problem. A delivery fee is not a problem. A flash sale is not a problem. But 100 scattered decisions can become a financial personality. This is where most people stop. They want awareness without documentation. They want to feel responsible without collecting proof. But memory is flattering. Writing is honest. The Federal Reserve has shown that many households remain financially exposed to even modest, unexpected expenses. That should force a harder question. If a $400 surprise can hurt badly, where exactly did the margin go? Sometimes the answer is low income. That is real. But sometimes the answer is something more uncomfortable. Untracked decisions built a fragile life. I learnt this the hard way because there was a time I thought I was financially disciplined simply because I earned well and paid my major bills on time. Then I started looking closely. The daily leaks were embarrassing, not catastrophic individually, but constant. Constant is powerful. Constant either builds or drains. Spending awareness is not about self-punishment. It is about making every dollar answer a question. Why are you leaving? Are you solving a real need, funding a real joy, or soothing an emotion I have not addressed directly? That last category is where the damage lives. Stress spending, boredom spending, comparison spending, celebration spending. I have seen this destroy people, not because pleasure is bad, because unconscious pleasure is expensive. If you cannot tell the difference between desire and emotional anesthesia, money starts doing a job it was never designed to do. For 30 days, write down every expenditure, every one, no exceptions. The point is not to behave better at first. The point is to see better. You need data before discipline. You need pattern before correction. You will discover something uncomfortable. Some purchases were not really for the item. They were for the feeling. The new shirt was for significance. The dinner out was for relief. The online order was for stimulation. Once you see the emotional motive, you gain power. What is named can be interrupted. Here is a line worth carrying. Untracked money becomes emotional money. Emotional money rarely obeys long-term goals. Visibility is not restriction. Visibility is consent. You cannot consciously choose what you refuse to see. After 30 days, categorize the spending: needs, wants, emotion. Then look at the divergence between what you spent on and what you claim to value. That gap is one of the most honest mirrors in adult life. Do not become extreme here. I am not asking you to strip life of pleasure. I am asking you to make pleasure intentional. There is a difference between enjoying your money and leaking your money. One is chosen, the other is drift. Structural changes help. Remove saved payment details from platforms that feed your impulses. Cancel subscriptions that no longer serve a real function. Set a pause rule for unplanned purchases above a certain amount. A 20-minute delay can break an emotional spell. A 24-hour delay can save you from an entire month of regret. This is where most people stop again. They collect the data, feel guilty, then quit. Wrong move. Guilt is useless unless it becomes redesign. You are not documenting your spending to shame yourself. You are documenting it to expose the mechanics. The strongest financial people I know are not always the highest earners. They are the clearest observers. They know where their money goes because they have stopped needing fantasy to protect their ego. They can face the statement without looking away. At night, review the day, not with panic, with precision. What did you spend? Why did you spend it? Was it aligned? Was it reflex? That daily act sharpens the mind. Over time, awareness creates selectivity. Selectivity creates margin. Margin creates peace. The truth is, the habit of seeing changes the habit of spending. Once money becomes visible, choice becomes possible. And once choice becomes possible, your financial life stops being a blur of transactions and starts becoming an expression of values. Chapter 5. Continuous Financial Learning. A paycheck without financial education is unstable success. It looks solid until life asks a harder question. How do taxes really affect what you keep? How does compound growth actually work? What makes a debt dangerous? What is inflation doing to idle cash? What separates an asset from a shiny distraction? If you cannot answer these questions, income can still arrive, but durability does not. The truth is, ignorance in money is expensive, quietly expensive, repeatedly expensive. Benjamin Franklin said, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." People quote that line because it sounds wise. They ignore it because real learning requires humility. It requires admitting that earning money and understanding money are not the same skill. I have seen high-status professionals with elite salaries behave like amateurs the moment the conversation moved from income to asset allocation, debt cost, or long-term planning. This is where most people stop. They read one finance book, follow 3 accounts online, memorize a few slogans, and believe they are educated. They are not. They are exposed to content. Education is what happens when knowledge gets applied to real decisions. Warren Buffett has spoken for years about the role reading played in his success. Charlie Munger described a similar life of constant study. That matters because it crushes the fantasy that good financial judgment appears fully formed. It is built. Repetition again, reading again, thinking again, applying again. I learnt this the hard way because there was a time I wanted results without study. I wanted financial strength to be intuitive. It was not. I had to sit still long enough to learn what I had avoided. Interest rates, risk, tax drag, behavioral bias, boring words. Expensive to ignore. The compounding of knowledge works exactly like the compounding of money. Once you truly understand one concept, the next one becomes easier. Understand compound growth, and long-term investing stops feeling abstract. Understand inflation, and idle cash stops feeling safe. Understand fees, and you stop confusing access with value. Each idea makes the next one cheaper to learn. Continuous financial learning does not require a degree. It requires rhythm. One book this month, one podcast each week, one report you actually read instead of pretending to understand. One conversation with a competent professional where you ask honest questions. Keep a learning log. Write one insight after every session and one action you will take because of it. That turns consumption into acquisition. If you study emergency funds and then increase your cash reserve target, the knowledge changed your life. If you study investing and then still leave every spare dollar idle for years out of vague fear, the knowledge entertained you. It did not transform you. The truth is, many people use confusion as an alibi. They say finance is complicated, so they stay passive. But passivity does not protect you. It only hands control to whatever default system surrounds you. Fees will still be charged. Inflation will still erode. Debt will still accumulate interest. Not choosing is a choice with consequences. Read across viewpoints too. Do not only consume the voices that flatter your existing beliefs. If you fear investing, study patient long-term investors. If you glorify risk, study collapse. If you love consumption, study people who built peace through restraint. The goal is not tribal identity. The goal is reality contact. Here is a line worth keeping. Money punishes vagueness. Knowledge sharpens action. Action repeated becomes security. The more clearly you understand the game, the less emotionally you play it. Set a weekly appointment with your financial education. Put it in the calendar, like a meeting with someone important, because it is a meeting with the part of your future that depends on your competence. 30 minutes is enough to begin. Consistency matters more than volume. This is where most people stop. They wait until money hurts to start learning. Learn before pressure. Learn while things are calm. Learn so that when pressure comes, you have frameworks instead of panic, not theory. Lived experience. The most financially grounded people I know are not always the flashiest. They are the most educated in quiet ways. They understand what they own. They understand why they own it. They understand what they refuse to touch. That clarity creates a kind of calm that no luxury can imitate. The truth is, wealth that arrives without knowledge is temporary. Wealth supported by learning becomes stable. You do not need to know everything. You do need to keep learning. Because every year you avoid financial education, someone else is still learning the rules that will shape your life, whether you study them or not. Chapter 6. Living debt-free. Few things are more demoralizing than earning money in the present while being chained to decisions from the past. That is what bad debt does. It takes future labor and sends it backward. It forces tomorrow to keep financing yesterday, month after month, interest after interest, quietly. The truth is, not all debt is equal. That is an important distinction. Borrowing to build a business, acquire education with clear return potential, or finance an income-producing asset is not the same as borrowing for impulse consumption. Good debt can expand capacity. Bad debt compresses it. Good debt may create future cash flow. Bad debt consumes future cash flow before it even arrives. This is where most people stop. They flatten all debt into one category, so they never have to examine their own behavior honestly. But you must. Debt used to build and debt used to soothe are not the same thing. Consumer debt is especially dangerous because it often hides behind small monthly payments. The payment looks manageable, so the purchase feels justified. But the total cost, once interest is factored in, tells a harsher story. Credit card rates have remained painfully high in recent years, which means carrying a balance is not a minor oversight. It is a tax on indecision and impulse. I have seen this destroy people, not because they were reckless in some cinematic way, because they normalized living slightly ahead of themselves. They used borrowed money to preserve an identity. They financed convenience. They financed image. They financed relief. Then they discovered that relief bought on interest becomes pressure. The debt snowball works for a reason. List the balances from smallest to largest. Pay the minimum on everything except the smallest. Attack that first one with every spare dollar. Eliminate it. Then roll that freed payment into the next target. Critics sometimes obsess over whether another method might save more mathematically. That misses a core human truth. Behavior matters. Early wins build momentum. Momentum keeps you in the fight. I learnt this the hard way, watching how people rationalize debt. They say they deserve it. They say they need it. They say it is temporary. Sometimes they are right. Often they decorate the problem with softer language, so they do not have to feel its weight clearly. Do a full debt inventory. Every balance, every rate, every minimum payment. No hiding, no rounding down, no emotional editing. This is where most people stop because clarity hurts. Good. Let it hurt. Pain seen clearly is more useful than pain disguised. Then add one rule that protects the rebuild. No new consumer debt while you are eliminating the old. That single rule matters because progress dies when you keep reopening the wound. If an unplanned credit purchase appears, apply a 24-hour delay. Most emotionally charged purchases weaken under time. Here is a line worth remembering. Debt is not only a number, it is a claim on your future focus. Every balance carried requires attention, energy, and emotional space. Freedom is not just about the interest saved, it is about the mind you get back. Good debt still deserves scrutiny. Can the asset realistically outperform the borrowing cost? Can you survive the downside? Can the cash flow support the commitment under stress, not only under optimism? Discipline means analysis before agreement. This is where most people stop again. They mistake monthly affordability for actual affordability. If the payment fits, they assume the decision fits. No, monthly payment is one piece. Total cost matters. Opportunity cost matters. Risk matters. Flexibility matters. You do not become debt-free only by paying balances. You become debt-free by becoming harder to seduce. That means greater awareness, slower decision-making, and a stronger identity. If debt has been your shortcut to pleasure, status, or relief, then removing debt means learning to face those needs without borrowing against tomorrow. Not theory, lived experience. The day a person truly understands that interest can either build their future or eat it, adulthood sharpens. That understanding changes the emotional texture of spending. It changes the meaning of patience. It changes what feels urgent and what feels foolish. Write down the monthly interest cost of your worst balance. Look at it directly. That number is the price of delay. It is what financial freedom from that debt would return to your life each month. Let that number anger you in a useful way. Then let discipline do what anger cannot. Consistent action, repeated until the chain breaks. The truth is, debt-free living is not about purity, it is about power. The less of your future income is already spoken for, the more of your life belongs to you. Chapter 7. Patience and long-term thinking. Compounding is one of the few forces in life that rewards quiet people more than dramatic ones. It does not care how excited you are. It does not care how often you check the screen. It does not care about your appetite for speed. It rewards time. It rewards consistency. It rewards the person who can keep doing the ordinary thing after the emotional novelty is gone. The truth is, patience is not passive. Patience is disciplined non-reaction. Warren Buffett said the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. People repeat the line because it sounds elegant, but there is steel inside it. Impatience is expensive. It shows up as panic selling, chasing trends, quitting good plans too early, or abandoning steady contributions because progress feels too slow to be emotionally satisfying. This is where most people stop. They understand compounding mathematically and still fail psychologically. They know time matters, they just do not want to submit to it. Take a simple example. A steady monthly investment over 20 years at a reasonable return produces a radically different outcome than the same plan started 5 years later. The money is one variable, time is the other. And time often does more of the heavy lifting than people appreciate. The difference between starting now and starting later is not small. It is structural. I learnt this the hard way because there was a period when I wanted proof too soon. I wanted every disciplined month to feel dramatic. Real investing does not work that way. In the early years, progress can look underwhelming. Then the curve changes. Then the machine starts to reveal what it was doing the whole time. The get-rich-quick trap preys on this exact weakness. Every generation has its version. Speculative manias, sudden gurus, easy flips, frenzied asset bubbles. In 2008, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, millions of people got a brutal lesson in risk, leverage, and false confidence. Yet even after that, The culture still keeps manufacturing new fantasies that promise speed without structure. Patience is easier when it is attached to a number. Set a 5-year or 10-year target. Make it real. Define the amount. Define the monthly contribution. Specify the account to which the money goes. Once the goal is visible, patience stops feeling like vague endurance and starts becoming directed practice. Review progress quarterly, not daily. Daily attention to long-term investments often creates short-term emotion. Emotion then pressures action. Action then damages strategy. A quarterly review gives enough space for actual movement without feeding the addiction to noise. Here is a line worth keeping. Impatience wants proof before process is complete. Discipline trusts process long enough for proof to arrive. Another one. Compounding is invisible before it is undeniable. That is why weak minds quit during the invisible stage. I have seen this destroy people. They do the right thing for 18 months, then abandon it because a louder opportunity appears online. They compare their steady path to somebody else's claimed breakout story and betray their own plan. Comparison is the enemy of compounding because it pushes you toward interruption. Write a short investment philosophy for yourself. Keep it brutally simple. I contribute consistently. I do not react to noise. I review quarterly. I increase contributions when possible. I choose patience over performance theater. When fear rises, read the philosophy before making changes. This is where most people stop again. They say they are long-term thinkers, but their behavior still follows short-term emotion. Long-term thinking is not what you claim during calm markets. It is what you preserve during uncomfortable ones. Not theory, lived experience. Some of the most powerful financial wins I have ever seen were not flashy. They were people doing boring things for longer than their peers thought was interesting. Then one day the boring looked brilliant. By then, the work had already been done. If you are starting late, do not waste more time grieving the lost years. Respect the mathematics by beginning now. The cost of impatience is already real. Do not increase it by hesitating longer. The truth is, patience is not waiting with crossed arms. Patience is continuing with open eyes. It is choosing the slower path because you understand that slower and weaker are not the same thing. In money, slow often becomes strong. Fast often becomes fragile. Chapter 8. Taking calculated risks. Refusing all risk feels safe until you understand what safety actually costs. Cash left idle loses purchasing power as inflation continues. Skills left unused decay. Opportunities left untouched do not remain neutral. They become the distance between your current life and your possible one. The truth is, zero risk is not the absence of loss. It is often the guarantee of a quieter kind. This is where most people stop. They confuse fear with wisdom. They tell themselves they are being careful when they are actually being avoidant. Careful people study risk. Avoidant people avoid the feeling of risk. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed how strongly human beings fear losses. That matters because financial growth often demands voluntary exposure to uncertainty. New investments, new roles, new ventures, new skills. If loss aversion is driving the car, you will overprotect the present and underbuild the future. Calculated risk is different from blind risk. Blind risk is emotional. It is driven by hype, pressure, envy, or speed. Calculated risk is researched. It asks hard questions before capital or time is committed. What is the worst case? What is the probability? Can I survive it? Can I recover? What would make this irrational? What would make it appropriate? I learned this the hard way because in my earlier years I made both mistakes. I avoided risks that could have grown me because uncertainty felt threatening. Then, at other times, I moved too fast because opportunity felt flattering. Both errors came from emotion. One from fear, one from excitement. Neither came from analysis. The wealthy are not always less exposed to risk. They are often better at defining it. Warren Buffett said, "Risk comes from not knowing what you are doing." That line matters because it reframes the entire conversation. The answer to risk is not paralysis. It is understanding. Start small. That is one of the most overlooked advantages in financial life. A small position in a new asset class, a small side project, a small test of a business idea, a small course that expands your earning power. Small does not mean unserious. Small means the downside is absorbable, while the learning remains real. Research from at least 3 independent sources before taking a financial risk. Understand how the return is supposed to happen. If you cannot explain how money is made, you are not investing. You are hoping with money attached. This is where most people stop again. They borrow conviction from the crowd. They hear that everyone is buying something, and that social proof creates a false sense of safety. In markets, crowd behavior is often a late signal, not an early one. By the time something feels universally obvious, the easy upside may already be gone, while the risk remains. Here is a line worth keeping. Fear should trigger analysis, not surrender. Excitement should trigger analysis, not acceleration. If emotion is high, the need for structure is even higher. Calculated risk also means knowing when not to move. If the downside could break you, the risk is not yet calculated for your current stage. That is not weakness, that is timing. Maturity means admitting when your capacity is not ready, rather than pretending courage is the same as recklessness. Run the 3-question test on one risk you have been avoiding. What is the worst case? How likely is it? Could you survive it? If the answers are defined, manageable, and survivable, identify the smallest viable first step. That step matters because courage grows through contact, not thought, not theory, lived experience. Every major leap in my life came after a season of analysis, not after a burst of motivation. When I moved too fast, I paid tuition to chaos. When I studied thoroughly and started at a scale I could absorb, uncertainty turned into education. The truth is, opportunity rarely arrives wrapped in certainty. If you demand that, you will stay still while other people build skill in motion. But if you learn to examine risk clearly, you stop being ruled by it. You turn uncertainty from a wall into a gate. And once you can do that, growth stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a responsibility. Chapter 9. Gratitude and Abundance Mindset. If the inside of your mind is built on shortage, nothing outside will feel like enough for long. More income will relieve you briefly. More savings will calm you temporarily. More success will impress other people for a moment. But scarcity as an internal operating system always finds a way to reinterpret gain as insufficiency. That is why some people earn more every year and still live emotionally cornered. The truth is, gratitude is not soft. Gratitude is stabilizing. Senthil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir wrote about scarcity as a force that captures the mind. When you feel there is never enough, attention narrows. You fixate on threat. You miss possibility. That psychological tunnel can affect spending, risk, learning, and patience. Scarcity does not only reduce peace, it reduces judgment. This is where most people stop. They hear gratitude and assume it means lower ambition. Wrong. Gratitude is not complacency. Gratitude is what prevents ambition from turning into panic. It lets you build from sufficiency rather than desperation. I learnt this the hard way. There was a period when I thought pressure was useful because it kept me striving. But unrelenting internal scarcity distorts decisions. It makes you overreact. It makes other people's success feel like your loss. It makes you buy status when what you really need is steadiness. I have seen this destroy people, not because they lack drive, because they built their drive on fear. An abundance mindset is not fantasy. It does not mean pretending every idea will work. It means believing that value can be created, skill can be built, and opportunity can be recognized rather than resented. Scarcity asks, why them and not me? Abundance asks, what can I learn from what they built? Comparison is one of the fastest ways to corrupt a money mindset. Social media makes this worse because it converts other people's highlights into your private disappointment. Then disappointment starts shopping. Then insecurity starts speculating. Then envy starts making financial decisions in your name. Aesop is credited with the line that gratitude turns what we have into enough. Simple sentence, deep consequence. When enough enters the mind, urgency becomes cleaner. You can still want more. You just no longer need anything more to feel whole enough to think clearly. Practice 3 gratitudes each morning. At least one financial, at least one outside of money. This is not mystical, it is cognitive training. You are teaching the mind to register resources rather than only register lack. Over time, that changes the emotional temperature of your decisions. Here is a line worth keeping. Scarcity spends to escape feeling small. Gratitude pauses long enough to choose. Another one. A person who cannot appreciate what is present will not handle more with much wisdom. More will only magnify the old disorder. This is where most people stop again. They assume abundance means looseness. No. True abundance often fosters stronger discipline by removing the frantic energy behind impulsive spending. When you are no longer trying to prove your worth through purchases, restraint becomes easier. Turn envy into curiosity. If someone has built something financially strong, ask what process produced it. Study the habits. Study the timeline. Study the sacrifices. Resentment teaches nothing. Curiosity can change a life, not theory, lived experience. Some of the most financially grounded people I know are not the richest. They are the least possessed by lack. They can enjoy progress without becoming swollen by it. They can admire someone else's success without interpreting it as personal failure. That mental freedom protects their decisions. If your mind is constantly saying not enough, then no habit will feel stable for long. Savings will feel inadequate. Patience will feel intolerable. Learning will feel too slow. Risk will feel too dangerous. But if you anchor yourself in gratitude, the nervous system relaxes enough to let wisdom stay in the room. The truth is, abundance begins as interpretation before it becomes outcome. It starts in how you see what already exists. Then it changes how you act. Then action changes results. And once results begin to confirm the new interpretation, the mindset gets stronger. That is how inner architecture becomes outer reality. Chapter 10, Your 7-Habit Money Mindset Roadmap. A strong financial life is not built from isolated tricks. It is built from connected habits that reinforce one another until they form identity. That is the final shift. You stop treating these habits as separate chores and start seeing them as one architecture, one system, one way of living. The truth is, paying yourself first creates the reserve that spending awareness protects. Spending awareness exposes the patterns that debt-free living must correct. Continuous learning strengthens the quality of your risk decisions. Patience gives those decisions time to work. Gratitude keeps the whole structure from collapsing into fear or envy. None of these habits reaches full power alone. Together, they stop fighting each other and start compounding. This is where most people stop. They collect insight without integration. They hear 10 good ideas and implement none of them in a repeatable way. Knowledge scattered across the mind is not the same as structure installed into the weak. Thomas Stanley studied wealthy households for The Millionaire Next Door and found something culture still refuses to respect. Quiet habits beat visible status. Real wealth often looked ordinary on the surface and disciplined underneath. that matters because it reminds you that financial identity is rarely glamorous while it is being built. I want you to build a simple daily tracker that lists all 7 habits. Did you protect the pay yourself first transfer? Did you record spending? Did you study money this week? Did you avoid new consumer debt and reduce old balances? Did you act with patience? Did you evaluate one calculated risk? Did you practice gratitude? The tracker matters because visibility converts vagueness into behavior. I learnt this the hard way. In every part of my rebuild, I improved fastest when I could see the pattern in plain form. Vague intentions flatter the ego. Tracking humbles it. Tracking also strengthens it, because once progress becomes visible, your trust in yourself starts to grow. Do a 10-minute review every Sunday. No drama, no self-attack, just contact with reality. Was the transfer made? Was spending recorded? Was learning completed? Was debt reduced? Did impatience interfere? Did fear prevent a reasonable step? Did gratitude disappear under stress? A weekly review turns drift into correction before drift becomes damage. Then do a monthly review with more depth. Check the balance in the account you are building. Review debt changes. Review what you learned. Identify the one habit that still feels least stable and give it the next month of deliberate attention. This is how real adults improve, not through random effort, through focused adjustment. The first 30 days matter more than the first perfect year. Install one habit at a time. First, automate the saving transfer. Second, begin the spending diary. Third, add the gratitude practice so the system is not built on deprivation. Fourth, commit to regular learning and complete your debt inventory. Once those foundations are in place, patience and calculated risk begin to make more sense because they are now supported by awareness and structure. Here is a line worth keeping. Financial freedom is not a dramatic escape. It is a disciplined arrangement of ordinary actions. Another one. You do not rise to a better money life by wanting it harder. You rise by making the next right act easier to repeat. I have watched people change their financial future without raises, windfalls, or miracles. A teacher with no savings can become someone with reserves. A worker drowning in consumer debt can become someone who sleeps without that pressure. A person who always said, "I am bad with money," can become someone who tracks, learns, saves, and decides with calm, not because they transformed in one heroic month, because they installed habits and refused to romanticize chaos anymore. This is where most people stop for the final time. They wait to feel like a different person before acting like one. But identity is built by action first. You do not save because you already feel disciplined. You save until discipline becomes part of your self-respect. You do not track spending because you are naturally organized. You track until honesty becomes normal. Go back to the 5 money thoughts you wrote at the beginning. Compare them to who you are becoming through these habits. The shift may not be complete yet. That is fine. What matters is that you are no longer unconscious. You are no longer drifting. You are no longer letting old beliefs run the entire system without challenge. The truth is, your money mindset is not fixed. It is practiced. 7 habits, repeated long enough to become a financial identity. And once identity changes, outcomes eventually follow. You have heard a lot in this audiobook, but the message beneath it all is simple. Your financial life is not built first in your bank account. It is built into your beliefs, then into your habits, then into your repeated decisions. The truth is, money rarely changes a person as much as it exposes the structure already there. If the structure is weak, more money magnifies weakness. If the structure is strong, even modest money begins to produce stability. A money mindset is not a slogan. It is the private pattern that determines whether income becomes peace or pressure. Small daily actions matter more than dramatic intentions. Paying yourself first is how you stop abandoning your future. Spending awareness is how you stop leaking power through invisibility. Continuous learning is how you make wealth sustainable instead of accidental. Debt-free living is how you stop sending tomorrow backward to pay for yesterday. Patience is how you let compounding reveal its strength. Calculated risk is how you stop mistaking fear for wisdom. Gratitude is how you build without being owned by scarcity. Now make this practical. Start today, not next month. Choose one habit, only one. If your life needs immediate order, start by paying yourself first. If your money keeps disappearing, start with spending awareness. If debt is choking your future, begin the inventory and attack the smallest balance. If confusion is the problem, schedule 30 minutes of financial learning this week and keep that appointment. If fear keeps you from moving, run the 3-question risk test on one opportunity. If your mind is exhausted by comparison and pressure, begin the gratitude practice tomorrow morning. You do not need a dramatic reinvention tonight. You need a real first step. Here is the roadmap in plain language. Protect a small portion of your income before anything else touches it. Write down what you spend every day so your behavior cannot hide from you. Learn one financial idea each week and apply it to a real decision. Refuse new consumer debt while you eliminate the old. Set a long-term target and stop checking short-term noise as if it were the truth. Study risk before taking it. Then start small enough to survive the lesson. Begin every day with gratitude so that ambition grows from steadiness, not panic. That is it. Not flashy, not cinematic, effective. I want to say something clearly to you. You are not disqualified for starting late. You are not broken because you made poor financial decisions before now. You are not weak because money has been emotional for you. Money has been emotional for millions of people. Shame does not build discipline. Honest repetition does. I learnt this the hard way. Rebuilding any part of your life requires you to stop using your past as proof that you cannot be trusted. The truth is, your past may explain your habits, but it does not have the right to govern them forever. You can become financially calmer than you have ever been. You can become more deliberate than your history suggests. You can become someone who saves without drama, spends with awareness, learns without ego, and waits without panic. You can become someone whose financial choices align with your values rather than your moods. That version of you is not imaginary. It is built through repetition, day by day, choice by choice, entry by entry, transfer by transfer. If this audiobook spoke to you, then do not let it end as inspiration. Let it become instruction. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who is ready to stop drifting financially. And in the comments, tell me this: which of the 7 habits are you starting today, and what has been the hardest part of your money mindset up to this point? Be honest. Precision is where change begins. I will leave you with one final truth. Financial freedom does not begin when life gets easier. It begins the moment you become harder to deceive, harder to distract, and harder to separate from your own discipline. Your future will be built the same way your past was built. Repeated choices. Start choosing like your life belongs to you.